Hello again, lovely people. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's tutorial. And we're going to explore in this project the versatility of the fabulous Elements ink pads. The picture today is called Meadow Wishes, and really this project shows how to create that watercolour look. But before we begin, let's take a look at the stamps and materials used in today's project. And these are the colours that we're using today: Sundance, Lime Punch, Bermuda, Olive, Graphite and Della Blue. We're also using some pan pastels. We have the black, we have this lovely phthalo blue, we have the chrome oxide green and the titanium white, but any blue or green would do. I'm also using the pastel pencils, yellow and white gel pen, Posca pens would do as well. We have the applicator for the pan pastels and a water brush, two large brushes from the large set, and also a very fine little brush from the masking fluid set, but any fine brush would do. Also we have lime green and waterfall in the stickles, and the putty eraser to remove some of the pan pastel. Now let's have a look at the card. We're using multifarious and some black for mounting purposes. And now the lovely stamps. We have Tree of Wisdom, which is one of my favourites, and we'll be just using a part of the stamp. Similarly with the Tree of Hope, we'll just be using the centre. Also the lovely elm tree, the English bluebell, a leaf spray from the set and a dandelion from the dandelion set as well. So if you want to convert all of that into something a little like this, just keep on watching. So to begin, we've got a 6" by 8" piece of multifarious card, and I've placed little marks the third of the way down, and that's roughly where I'm going to paint some of the background. I'm also squeezing the ink pads to put some ink on the lids and try to use them from the lids. Obviously you'll see I don't end up doing that. I always tend to dip my paintbrush into the pads, so do as I say, not as I do. So we're starting off by putting some water down on the card, and you can also use watercolour card for this project. I didn't have any at this stage, but we're just using the large brush then to literally dab some of that Sundance yellow onto the top of the page. I didn't want it to be a line of yellow. I'm just dabbing it, and then I'm creating my line where the first little mark is, and as I say, it's roughly about the third of the way down, and I sort of have in my head that I want to create like a bank across at that level. So now I'm moving on to Lime Punch, just to add a little darker colour, still the same sorts of tones, and just letting it blend into the paper. I'm taking a smaller brush now and the Della Blue ink pad, and I'm just literally dabbing little vertical lines to create the impression of background foliage or trees, and I'm just letting that bleed into the background, and it's just dabbing the paintbrush and using the breadth of the paintbrush and also the side of it to create little lines and like a little background bank. And you'll see how the inks blend together and create that sort of foliage effect. And I just continue on doing that randomly and to see what happens. There you are. It look like sort of faded trees in the background. Now I'm moving onto the larger brush again and taking the Bermuda ink this time and creating that bank with the darker colours, and I keep squeezing that on the lid to get some more. There we are. And similarly to the trees that we've created, I'm simply just taking the brush and dabbing it on and thinking that this is a meadow and there'll be dips in it, and some parts will be light, maybe touched by sunlight in the centre, and other parts will be grassy areas, a little bit darker. and gradually I'm building that up while the paper is still damp, so that the ink, and I'm using graphite I think now, no sorry, it's still Bermuda, now graphite, and I'm just dabbing it on top, and it will blend in with the ink underneath and bleed together and create this nice watercolour effect. And bear in mind, as with watercolour, these ink pads are water-based dye ink. It will dry slightly more faded, and just continue building that up, popping colour where you fancy basically, and blending it together, keeping the centre nice and bright. And now moving on to the lovely Sundance and blending some more of that into the centre. There we are, something a little like that. Now the paper's still damp, and what I'm doing now is I'm thinking about the bluebells that are going to be in the foreground, and what I want is to add in some more of that blue colour to the mix. And again, I'm doing it in a very scruffy way. I'm just scrunching my little brush down here and there to sort of create faded bluebells. They don't have to be defined. It's just really adding some colour. And now I'm going to add some definition to that. And bear in mind, the paper is still damp. So what will happen is with this stamping, these will bleed into the background. And next up, we're taking that lovely little fine brush and the graphite, and this is where we're going to add some definition to the little trees, and simply drawing very lightly some branches in the centre of the trees. And later on I also, I think, add some little branches coming off at the side, but at this stage it's just straight lines with a little fine brush to look something like that. You can also use stamps for this if you have some lovely Lavinia line stamps, small size, they would do. Now graphite and olive, and I'm stamping the trees to that bank at the top. What I'm doing is I'm using the graphite and I'm using the olive, and I'm mixing them on the stamp, and I'm only inking up the centre of the stamp, and I'm masking off with some torn copy paper the bottom of the trunk so that I only have a portion of the stamp. And because the ink pads are water based, which they'll blend when you add water, instead of colouring them in, I'm simply taking some water and adding that to the trunk, and it blends together. So I'm doing the same thing again, I'm repeating that. I'm putting the graphite and the olive green on top, on the centre of the stamp. I'm masking off the bottom, and I'm trying to alter the angle of the stamp and the height of the stamp so the tree looks a bit different from the first stamp. And there you are. And again, I'm taking the water and I'm blending that in so that I don't have to colour it in. And I'll come back later on and fix the bases, which at the moment look as if the bank is going through the tree, but I'll fix that later on once it's dry. And I'm adding with some of the olive a little definition there at the top of the bank. Now next up, we're also going to do the same with this lovely tree. This time I'm just using the graphite, but in the same way as I did before, I'm just inking up the centre of the stamp. I'm masking off the bottom, placing it where I want it to go, and I'm putting pressure just on the part of the stamp that I want to appear. And there it is. And again, filling it in with some water so that that just blends and is completed. And now for the finer stamp, I'm doing the same again, inking it up. This time I'll be using this stamp in a couple of ways. That's first generation stamping, so it's a bit stronger in the graphite colour. and masking off there the tree where I don't want the branches to go. And then I'm also using the olive colour to stamp it, just for a little bit of variety, so this appears more in the background. And then I'm doing second generation stamping as well, so there's a variety of colours, and some look more to the front and others look faded in the background. And I'm going to repeat that process for the other side, again bearing in mind that I want the trees to go in different angles, and some are upright, some are to one side, and it's really to mimic what happens in nature. Trees are never straight up, some of them grow all different angles. So there we are. Next I'm going to take my olive again, and this time I'm using a water brush. I'm going to dip it in some of the ink on the lid, and I'm just dabbing the impression of leaves on the branches. And this is an easy thing to do, and the background now by this stage is dry, so this is just being dabbed on top of a dry background. And it's literally dabbing little dots here and there and building it up until you're happy with how it looks. And as I say, it's just background leaves. Now, next up we're going to use some pan pastels to add more colour saturation. And as I think, being a mixed media artist, sometimes what you lay down looks lovely, other times you think, oh, I'd like that to be a different colour, or I'd like that to be a little bit deeper. And this is where the pastels come in. I think it's a bit like getting second chances to fix what your first layer looks like, and enhance it. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking the pastel and I'm just deepening it up in places. Now, do you need the pan pastels for this? No, not necessarily. If you've got pencils, pastel pencils or pastel sticks, they would do just as well. It's just sometimes easier to use the pan version of the pastel, because you can just dip your finger in, as I have just done. And it's really a question of application, I think. And I'm often asked this, what is better, the pastel sticks or the pastel pencils or the pan pastels? And really, it's much the same medium, it's just different ways of applying it. So use what you have, and don't think you have to have everything. Certainly this picture or this type of picture can be achieved if you simply have the box of lovely pencils.
have seen, all that you know. But I believe in something untold, and I gotta know if I'm going insane, 'cause there's life in the wind, and it's calling my name. It's magic, wouldn't you know? It's something fantastic, wants to be known. And all that you gotta do is be willing to look for it. It's magic, alive in my bones. I've dreamed of infinite things, and reality seems so limiting. The wonder and mystery's calling me, I can't escape. 'Cause what if the song in my soul wants me to know that it's magic? Wouldn't you know? It's something fantastic, wants to be known. And all that you gotta do is be willing to look for it. It's magic, alive in my bones. Somehow, somewhere, somehow, somewhere, somehow, somewhere, somehow, somewhere, we gotta believe in the magic and mystery, and impossible things, in the magic and mystery. We gotta believe in the magic and mystery, and impossible things.
So I hope you enjoyed the project and hope you'll have a go and create your own version. I must say I really enjoyed doing this project, and I'm so grateful for you joining me today. So until next time, take very good care of yourselves, and remember, above all, be brave and just enjoy the adventure.
Somewhere, somehow,